Everything that we're doing now, this cartoon did it years ago. So it's soon to come that we will definitely be having air flight for instead of cars.
Absolutely. I remember the Jetsons. Didn't they have like a robot butler?
Yes, they did. Remember, just like we
Yes.
have now inside of
Yeah.
stores and stuff, the robots that come through the stores. Yeah, it's the
Mhm.
same thing.
Yeah, that was a 90s cartoon, if I remember correctly.
No, because I was still young. So it was in the 80s.
Oh
I was
my.
younger. Yes, I was younger. Let me say that.
Okay, so maybe when I saw those reruns.
Yes,
Oh my God, we just
probably
aged
so.
ourselves.
Yes, we did, especially me.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about something that actually I was reading about it a few weeks ago. And then when I saw the topics, I was like, wow, this is like serendipitous, where you have someone that is going to join my show, you, to talk about women in male dominated spaces when it comes to the corporate world. And I was reading a little bit today as well, just to catch myself up, because I think it's something that's very, very important to discuss.
Yes, it is. I don't think that it gets enough conversation. A lot of times we get passed over, looked over, and we don't get to talk about it because there's so many other things. We're talking about that glass ceiling, and when you see one woman get there, everyone thinks that that's just enough, but it's how women get to stay there or how women deal with the emotions that are attached to being in these jobs where they are the first or the only or just a few. So it's a lot of obstacles besides the one of just breaking the ceiling.
Why do you think there is a lack of parity when it comes to men in certain jobs and women in those same jobs?
Oh, society, ancestrally, all the things, and the patriarchal system in itself that has always defined how women should show up and what looks like a good woman, what a good woman is supposed to do. And even though we've shifted and grown, we still respect those thought processes from hundreds of years ago, where women ideally are sought as caregivers and nurturers. So they end up as nurses, they end up as teachers, um, executive assistants, and anything outside of that, we're described as an anomaly. We're not anything, that's just what you see. We're outside of the norm.
I look at where I work and I look at where I've worked before, and there's always been an interesting dynamic because when it comes to, let's say, the executive role, you'll have you'll have a large group of, let's say, men in the manager role, and then you'll have like um a group of women in the senior manager role, and then their boss are men, and then their bosses are women. So you have like man, woman, right? And one thing that a lot of people did notice when they're discussing that is that it was a specific type of man, woman. And when I was reading some of these reports, you had a lot of people who were, let's say, women of color who are struggling to break through, because one person who's a black woman, she was quoting saying that they think, to your point, one is enough. One white woman, one black woman, one Asian woman, one this, right? They're saying, okay, there is one, so there could be more. But I think sometimes what people forget is that, yes, there's the one, but what's the problem with having two, five, 10? Do you see that dynamic as well?
Oh, I definitely see it in the environment that I work in now. I it's two women, myself and another woman who was brought in, but that's enough for the men. That's enough to fill a quota. I recently started talking about it on my social media. A lot of companies in itself just want to check the box so that they can get their monies or their revenues from the government. They aren't actually wanting us there. They aren't actually seeing the value that we bring, even though we bring value every single day. We bring more than even the average man because we always seem to have to think that we have to work harder, show up greater, do all the things. And then not just that in itself, I get so excited about this. Let me calm myself down because I was getting ready to say, just like you think about it, understand that the things that we carry, that we have to make sure that it's women that come behind us that make sure that they're secure in a job. So there's never going to be where it's thought of that we should just show up and that's more than enough, that we should be more because of the men itself, the mindset. And I'm not asking anyone to change, but there is room for everyone to grow.
Why do you think sometimes those who maybe achieve the success of breaking through, what do you think is maybe preventing them from helping someone else up as well?
Oh, um, I'm for me, I'm not that person, but what I do see is some women feel that the struggle, the next person, the woman behind them needs to struggle to understand. They need to understand and they need to go through it to appreciate it, or they put us against each other. Oh, do you know what Beth does? Do you know what Shatima does? Oh, they're all these great things that they do, and they kind of try to backpedal what we've done and how we've showed up. I had a boss, and it's insane Asian American who thought that him tearing me down and building up another woman would allow her to be seen and to be heard, but he wanted to tear me down to make me look less than. This is what they do in these companies. They put us against each other. So it's always that battle between other women in power who want to see you struggle, men that put us against each other so that there is no reason for us to get along, so that we can bring other women, teach other women, show other women. I just think it's unfair, but this is the way society has trained us or trained men, and not until they're willing to understand how they show up. But I'm not asking them to change. I'm asking us as women to recognize what's going on and us shift, us grow.
Do you think it starts maybe because you mentioned, at least when we were talking, do you think it starts from trusting yourself to be able to make that change,
Oh,
and then maybe creating that same trust that you just harness into someone else as well, so now you have a group of people trusting each other versus one person trying to do it all by themselves?
oh, it definitely starts with trusting yourself. And with trusting yourself comes self love. People equate self love and self care as the same thing, and it absolutely is not. Understanding that you get to talk nice to yourself, that you get to show up for yourself, keep small promises to yourself, that in itself allows you to build self trust. And when you're trusting yourself and your own beliefs and your qualifications, then you show up differently.
I like that. Was when I became a manager, I was the only manager that looked like me. And I remember one time there was a group of men and women. They were so celebratory of it, especially those who were at the time in their 50s and 60s. I remember one woman specifically saying that she didn't ever think in her lifetime she would see a black manager. And I didn't understand the impact of those words back then because I'm 35 now, so I was in my early 30s back then. So it wasn't that impactful. It was impactful, but it wasn't as impactful as it was to that person. And then I remember like a year later, Obama was president. Then I was like, okay, I think this is how she felt when she was telling me that, because some people out from Canada were looking at the American politics. You guys were overjoyed when you saw Obama as the president. Same with her now, different circumstances, of course, but she was so overjoyed because she was, I guess, raised in an environment where every time she thought of a manager, she had a specific view of a manager. It was a man, probably, yes, but it was a specific type of man. So her baseline was different. Like, what are some of the steps that maybe we can help people to adjust their baseline so they're accepting of any and everyone can be in certain roles as long as they're qualified, but we have to help the people get qualified and maybe remove some unconscious biases that we may have.
Well, that works. That all starts with us as human beings. That starts with, say, your core belief. Our core belief system allows us to stay in the same mindset, stay showing up the same way. But when we really tap into that and allow ourselves to see that this is just a belief that has been passed down generationally, and it's like a tradition. It's like holidays, like you're getting ready to celebrate now. You have certain foods, certain drinks that you serve, and if you change it, if you shift it, that's what this is, being able to change and to shift that core belief of what a person looks like in a career. We typically see certain people, and when you put someone else in it, a woman of color, if you put a black man in there, a black woman in a position, it's not norm, of course, it's shifting the way we are received. But it definitely allows women and men, when they come in to see us, and that we are representation, to show up differently. They take such pride in that. So it's about shifting the belief system, that core belief that we have within ourselves. We get to change it, we get to shift it, we get to grow from it. We don't have to continue to do the same things. But I believe ultimately it's tapping into what you want versus what you believe. And that is something that we as human beings have to recognize, that we want to feel safe and we want to feel secure. And when we think outside of the box and the rest of the world isn't, it's hard and it's scary. And not being able to be like everyone else around us takes us out of our comfort zone because it makes other people uncomfortable a lot with us. Because I remember just, I'm the only woman at one point and a black woman, and I run the emergency operation at an airport. And when I have black men pull me to the side and say, I'm so proud of you, I see you. They bring their daughters on family day to come see me because I am representation. And that in itself changes and shifts. It's something they've never seen in 50 years at that airport. So it's just about us shifting the way we think, the way we feel, and tapping into what we actually believe, what we actually allow to happen.
And how much of a role do you think maybe internal shame or outward judgment plays a part in not maybe being as involved in the change that we would like to be?
Oh, if I put a percentage on it, unless you've done this work, it's 100%. Honestly, I wanted to come up with something fancy just now. We was talking like maybe 37%. No, it's 100% because we don't have it. We don't have these conversations like you and I are having. And if we have them, we have them in the shadows. We have them behind doors. We're not outside talking. We just sit and we talk about it amongst ourselves, and that's enough. And we talk about the change, but we're not outwardly allowing ourselves to see it or to feel it because we don't want to feel that discomfort in our bodies.
I was just thinking of some of the people I've seen who've struggled with this, who've shared this, and they feel so powerless because they wanted to change and they want to understand, but they also feel that their power has been stripped away because when they look around, they're not as comfortable to have these conversations as you mentioned, right? Like human nature is that in general, you tend to be more comfortable, at least initially, with those that look like you, walk like you, talk like you. But some people may feel that they don't have that power. And I know that in the United States, there's been a lot of talk about like the fallout of the Me Too movement and how that has changed the workplace between men and women. And I wonder if sometimes some people are just fed up in hearing it. And that's maybe why you see the decrease in the inclusive programs and the funding for it. And you see how there's some people out there just like, you know what? I just want to go to my work, do my 8 hours, and go home. Do you see people being I put well disinterested in taking part because they rather say that, I know I'm not causing it, so I'm just gonna stay over here and be quiet.
Oh, do I? I'm gonna tell you, as you're saying that recently, of course, the company I work for, it's a big push for the DEI and all the things, and they got posters and but they want to check a box too. They have to do what they're supposed to do in order to get funding. Let me say that. But one of my colleagues, white colleague. He was like, why isn't it something for white men up here? They are feeling the pressure of us having anything to ourselves or asking them to think outside the box. So I see it, I hear it, and if you speak about it, they get very offended because they don't understand it. And that's because we're not really having the conversations. We're watching video. We're given a piece of paper to sign that says that you watched the video, but to really tap into the psyche of each other and to understand it and where it actually comes from, that's where just checking a box is missing the point. So I don't believe my colleagues that I work with that aren't black or brown understand it. They really don't. They think we're taking something from them. So it is um, a feeling of misunderstanding right now. That's the word that is coming. They don't understand it. So it's a misunderstanding. They believe we're taking something instead of actually growing together and understanding how each other thinks. That's why I'm very skeptical about saying allies because a lot of times those allies truly aren't understanding unless they've done the work on themselves. And that's even us as humans, us having this conversation is because we've done the work. We understand different things differently. We see this world in a at a much bigger um, landscape than most people because we do the work on ourselves and understanding that they're not because they're not doing the work on themselves. And that's key also.
What are some of the ways that we can share those experiences and help people who are maybe inclined to listen at the very least? Because I do think that's a big first step, is just being open to the conversation, and then we can work together to maybe formulate something and turn them into people who are sitting on the fence to actual allies.
Um, it's funny you ask that. Sometimes it's concerning to me. If we have them in the workplace, I think that we need to have them where it's an open dialogue and we have someone in the middle to really help you hear each other because we miss the point a lot of times. We don't hear each other. We listen, but we don't hear exactly what the person, we don't understand the feelings. We don't understand that emotion that's attached to the other person. So having that safe space, I think anything is feeling safe to be open, to be honest. We miss that a lot of times.
Do you think there's a lot of companies that don't have that safe space
Oh,
there?
yes. Oh, yes, definitely. A lot of people don't have a safe place because that's what puts us into flight, fright, fawn, freeze mode in itself. We don't feel safe and security and um, being able to just allow yourself to breathe outside of your fear. And we don't do that. We just kind of stay stuck and still in order. People don't want to lose their jobs. People don't want to be isolated, ostracized. They don't want to be all the things. And that's a big thing for, say, a person that's gotten a job, that's broken the glass ceilings, that's done all the things, when they're still sitting and they're still trying to make headway and they're thinking about the person behind them. And you're asking them to have the conversations, you're asking them to change and shift things. So that is a fear in itself. How are you doing that? How are you asking someone? And they have to believe within themselves that they're doing the right thing, that they're showing up for themselves, not just for everyone else. I think that's what its change comes from, showing up for yourself and wanting it, and being able to have those conversations with the people that want to see change, want to shift, because then that person talks to the next person.
And so many people, when they're put in a situation that could be uneasy, they do freeze. Right? Like
Yeah.
some people do run and some people do fight. They're like, okay, this is a noble cause. I agree with this. Let me fight for it. Whereas some other people, they would freeze or they would take flight. And both of those two options are simpler in a way because they don't necessarily have to be involved, but it's not disrespectful to the cause, because someone could turn around and say that, Samantha, what you're saying, I totally get it, I totally understand. And I think there should be some change. But you know what? I'm not that person. And a lot of people will respect that answer. But then there's some people that look at it and say that, well, if you're not for the change, you're for the same, meaning that you're okay with the way things are. Is that what you're saying? But I think those people, they're like, nope, that's not my interpretation. My interpretation is I don't want to be involved. So when you have that line in the sand there, and you're trying to maybe move the dial for these people and get them to understand that this is something that benefits everybody, how do we have those types of conversations?
You just have the conversation. You don't always have to push someone to stay. Everyone is not going to make it at the same place at the same time. And that's what we have been taught. We got to bring everybody with us. We got to show up for everyone. We can't. In the ideal world, we would all be in the same place right now, but we're not. Everyone doesn't even understand the same time, same, everything in the same way. So allowing people to get there on their terms, but still being able to have the conversations without being disrespectful is the key. I don't have to bring the masses with me, but I have to be able to have the conversations. That's key. If you can't have the conversations, then how are you making any changes? Everyone is not on the same playing field. Everyone nervous system is not built the same, depending on the traumas that they face, depending on the situations and the circumstances in their lives. So, how am I going to force someone or blame someone? All I can do is offer them love and respect and do my job and do my part. And me speaking up, being able to have it is the part that I play in this, being able to protect, being